Hi there soulmates, welcome to my YouTube channel. Please kindly subscribe if you are here to do so. And today we'll be learning how to make an off-shoulder bustier. I'll be explaining a whole lot of things about bustier in this video, so please kindly watch till the end. I am going to start by marking out my starting line, which is also the shoulder line. For me, when I'm making an off-shoulder, I like to take out about 4 inches or 5 inches out. This is because I want to be able to tighten my over bust very well. Except I'm doing an off-shoulder that will have yoke. That is when I start from the actual shoulder length. So for every measurement that has to do with length for any off-shoulder dress I am making, I like to take out 4 to 5 inches. That means every length I'll be taking, I'll make sure I take out that 4 or 5 inches from my starting line. I'll be taking out 5 inches for this tutorial. I'll start my measurement from that 5 inches down to my half length measurement, and for the front half length I'll be using 17 inches for the front half length, while for the back I will be using 15.5 inches for this particular tutorial. That means I'll be having a bust depth of 1.5 inches for the front bodies. Please, I would need you to pay attention to this tutorial because I'll be explaining everything about bust depth and every other thing you need to know. Alright, so the first thing is to mark out the shoulder to half length measurement, which I've explained better earlier, and as you can see me doing this video, I was just crossing lines there to indicate the part that we will no longer be needing for this tutorial. I want to try and make this tutorial as clear and understandable as it can. The next thing I'll be doing is to take the shoulder to nipple measurements. Remember, I said for every measurement you are going to be taking for this off shoulder, you are going to start from 5 inches. That means you are taking 5 inches out. You can do 4 inches, but whatever you are taking out, that is where you start taking your measurement. That means if you are taking 4 inches out, you are going to start your measurement from 4 inches, and if you are doing 5, you start from 5 inches. So I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder to nipple measurement, shoulder to under bust measurement. I am working with a shoulder to nipple measurement of 10 inches here and shoulder to under bust measurement of 13.5 inches. So I'll go ahead now to mark that out. I already marked out the shoulder to half length measurement before, which is 17 inches, and now I'll just go ahead to label the lines. The next thing I'll do is to take the nipple to nipple measurement, which is also known as the bust span. Remember that this pattern is on fold, so that means if we have a nipple to nipple measurement of 8 inches, it will be 4 inches wide on fold. So I'll mark the 4 inches on the shoulder line, on the shoulder to nipple line, shoulder to under bust line, and the half length line, just to make sure that I have a straight line. I'll place my ruler and I'll rule. The next thing I'll be doing is to go back to the under bust, and I'll take out 1 inch from one side, as you can see in this video, and another 1.5 inches from the other side. You can actually do 1 inch on both sides, but for me, when I'm working with a bigger bust, maybe 38, 40 and above, I like to take out 1 inch from one side and 1.5 inches from the other side. I'll go to the shoulder line and I will take out 1 inch from both sides. I'll take out 1 inch each on both sides, as you can see in this video. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to go back to the under bust line, and I'll connect the 1 inch I marked there to the half length line. I'll also do the same for the other side where I marked 1.5 inches. And the next thing I want to do now is to go in with my French curve. This is to make sure that I have this curvy shape there. I don't want the bust point to be too sharp. You should do the same to when you are making yours. The bust point should not be too sharp so that it can have this really nice shape. Now I'll be going to the shoulder line to connect that curve to the 1 inch I marked on both sides of the shoulder line, which will be taken out. So I'll just place my curve and connect it. The essence of doing all of this is to avoid any sharp area. Alright, the next thing to do is to take the armhole measurement. Remember I said we'll be taking out the 5 inches for every measurement we'll be taking. I mean the length of the measurement. So I'll just place my tape 5 inches away from the shoulder line, and I will mark 8 inches, which is the armhole measurement. So I'll rule that out, and the next thing I'll do now is to take the shoulder measurement. Please kindly pay attention here. Now the shoulder length I'll be using here is 7 inches. Remember we took out 2 inches from that side, and we have to replace so that the shoulder length will not be like shortened when you are done making your outfit. So now I'll measure the 7 inches, and what I took out there, which was 2 inches, I'll replace it. On the shoulder to nipple line, remember we didn't take out anything from that side, as you can see in this video. So I'm just going to go in with the exact bust measurement. There will be no need for any addition or subtraction for this part. Now on the waistline, the waist measurement I'll be working with is 30 inches. So that's 30 divided by 4. We have 7.5. Now remember we took out 2.5 inches in total on that side. So I'll measure the 7.5 and replace the 2.5 inches we took out. as you can see in this video. So that's how to take the measurement. I'll go in with my ruler and I'll just connect together. I'll go back to the shoulder line and just rule out the armhole measurement I marked out earlier. I'll label that line now so as to avoid any confusion. So now I want to measure the bust measurement on the armhole line, which is also known as the chest line. I'll measure what I took out from that part, which is 0.5 inch, and make sure that I replace it after taking the bust measurement. I'll measure the bust measurement and add that 0.5 back. I'll connect it to the initial line I had there, so it is that easy. Mind you can start taking your measurement anywhere, but please just make sure that whatever you take out as your dart intake, remember to replace it. Maybe you take out half inch, 1 inch, or anything, maybe on the half length line, on the under bust line. Please ensure to replace whatever you take out. So what I'm doing here right now is just adding the usual 2 inches seam allowance to the side. In case you do not do this on your pattern, please don't forget to do this on your fabric. You can either do this on your pattern or you just add it when you transfer to your fabric. So just make sure you have the 2 inches seam allowance on your hat, just in case of any adjustment. I'll go ahead now to label the seam allowance so that I won't be confused. Now the next thing I want to do now is to go in with my bust dart, and I'll be using 1.5 inches for my bust dart because the half length measurement for the front bodice of this pattern is 17 inches, while the half length for the back is 15.5 inches. Now bust dart is the difference between the front and the back bodies. I would like to explain this further because I've gotten several questions regarding the bust dart. Now the thing is, your front half length is usually longer than that of the back. This is because of the bust area. The chest will pull it up, and if you use the same half length for both the front and back bodies, for instance, if your half length measurement from the front is 17 inches and if you use the same thing for the back, when you fix your zip, you will realize that there will be this bulge at the back because the half length is too long. There is no bust on the back. So that is why it is advisable to take your measurement separately, especially for bustier clothes like this. You take your half length measurement from the front and from the back. So it is the bust dart that makes the front and back bodies to be equal when you join. You will understand better as we proceed with this tutorial. So the next thing I want to do now is to slash that line, as you can see in this video. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I can close the bust dart. It is when you close this bust dart that the back bodies will be equal. You will get to understand better because I'm going to draft the back bodies as well in this tutorial, and I will show you all everything. So I'll go ahead and close my bust dart with my tape, as you can see in this video. Then the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the part will no longer be needed. I mean the part we took out for our dart intake. Okay, so before we do that, I want to quickly explain, just in case you might want to do maybe a sweetheart neckline or any shape for your off shoulder bustier. So this is how to go about it. You can actually fold that part in, because if you cut out your shape without folding the dart in, you realize that when you join the sides together, it will no longer be equal. So you can just fold in the dart like so and just mark out any shape of your choice. Another thing I like to do is to cut out my pattern, my fabric, my lining, and join them together. Just fold into two and mark out any neckline. I think that's the most perfect way for me. It works perfectly for me. You join your fabric together, you join your lining together separately, you just fold them and you mark out any shape you would want it to have. So now I have started cutting out the bustier, and the part you saw me marking or writing like something like star there is just to indicate that we'll be taking that part out. So I'm just going to cut them out. Please be careful while doing this. You want to make sure that your shape still remains the same. I'll also cut out the armhole area and the side. So if I'm making an off shoulder with sleeve, this is how it's going to be. All I will have to do is to just shape the neckline if I need to, if the style requires me to do so. But if I'm making something like a tube, I'll make sure to blend the armhole. As you can see me trying to illustrate in this video, it's not difficult at all. You're just going to blend with your armhole. So that will be the end for the front bodies. I want to show you all how to cut out on your fabric. So while you place the fabric on fold, you are going to place the pattern on it and add ½ inch joining allowance. That is what we use to join the bustier together. So if you can remember when we were cutting the other time, we used 4 inches as the nipple to nipple measurement, which is the exact nipple to nipple measurement we are working with. Don't forget the fabric was on fold, that made it 4 inches. It was actually 8 inches initially. So just take for instance that we do not add this joining allowance. That means that when we join, we will be left with 3 1.5 inches, and that would be too small for the nipple to nipple measurements we are working with. Some people like to add their 1/2 inch while drafting their pattern. You can as well do that. So once you had your joining allowance while drafting your pattern, you wouldn't need to add it to your fabric again. So you're just going to place your pattern and you are going to cut. If you watch this video carefully, you would see that I didn't add any extra allowance to the side where we had our normal seam allowance. That's the usual seam allowance for every dress. So I didn't add extra allowance there because we already had it 2 inches there. And that's just it about the front bodies. Now I'll set this aside and proceed to the back bodies. For the back, we are going to repeat almost the same thing we did while we were drafting the front bodies. We are going to draw a starting line, but for the half length measurement, we are going to use 15.5 inches. Remember I said we'll be using bust dart. I think I explained that earlier. Now please don't forget to start your measurement from that 5 inches. Remember, we are cutting an off-shoulder dress, and it was the same 5 inches we took out while we were cutting the front body. So I'll go ahead and mark out the zipper allowance. Here I'm using a zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. I'm just going to draw a line there. The next thing I will do now is to take the shoulder measurement and I'll mark. There's no big deal for these back bodies. I'll also take the armhole measurement. Don't forget we took out 5 inches for our off shoulder, so I'll start my measurement from the 5 inches. I'll mark 8 inches for the armhole, just like we did while we were cutting the front. I've labeled the zip allowance now, and I want to start taking the body measurement. Please, while taking your body measurement, you are not going to start from the extreme end. You are going to start where the zip allowance stops. The zip allowance is not part of the measurement. Now I have taken my body measurement. I'll just go ahead to connect it. Please kindly note that I already added the 2 inches side seam allowance to this measurement. That is maybe your bust divided by 4 plus 2 inches extra side seam allowance. Your waist as well divided by 4 plus the 2 inches extra side seam allowance. I shaped the armhole the usual way. There is no big deal for these back bodies, and the next thing I'm going to do is to just draw out the usual dart for the back bodies. I took the dart in with 1/2 inch on both sides, and that makes it 1 inch. I'm just going to connect the dart legs, and the next thing I want to do now, please, this part is totally optional. You may ignore it, but I like to do that because it helps my zipper to just relax very well at the back. So I just marked out 1/2 inch from that side, as you can see in this video, and I just blended it, as you can see. You can ignore this if you want, it is not compulsory, but I like to do that. So the next thing now is to start cutting out. We are almost through with this tutorial. I'll cut out the back bodies. You may want to shape out the neckline here. This is me just labeling the neckline out. So you're just going to go in with your pattern master and draw out any shape of your choice depending on how you want it, but just make sure that you connect back to the shoulder line. And now we are almost done with our cutting, but I'll still like to explain some things. Okay, now so I'll just mark out the 2 inches extra side seam allowance out for us to see. I'm not going to cut out, but I just want to mark it out so that we can see. I'll label it just like I did for the front bodies. Now this is the part I want to explain very well because I've gotten several questions regarding this part. People have been asking, oh, would the front and the back bodies be equal when you are joining the sides because you use different half length for the front and the back? Yes, it will be equal, and that was why we used the bust dart. Can you see? This is me trying to show you that it will definitely be equal if you calculate what you are doing very well. So now I want to explain it for us very well. Now for this pattern, we used half length of 17 inches for the front, which I just wrote out, and for the back half length we used 15.5 inches, and our bust dart is the difference between the front and the back half length. That means we are going to subtract 15.5 inches from the 17 inches, which gives us 1.5 inches, and that is going to be our bust dart. Can you see? So I'll just try and measure it for us all now to see that we are having the 1.5 inches as our bust dart. Can you see? Now we have 1.5 inches as our bust dart. There are some people that have their front half length as 17 inches while the back is 15 inches. That means they are going to subtract 15 from 17, which gives them 2 inches for the bust dart. So you are just going to use the same method for any measurement you are working with. Lastly, I'll go ahead to cut out the neckline we shaped earlier. Please don't forget to notch your zipper allowance so that to avoid any confusion. And that will be the end of this tutorial. Please kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel and give a thumb up if this tutorial was helpful. Thank you guys for watching. Bye. See you in my next video.